Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of More Game Chats. We're here to talk about the big controversy topic of the week, or whatever it is. Before we get there, my name is Hugo. We have here to my left, in my computer is my left, I don't know.
Yeah, for me as well. So, Vladimir, pleased to meet you.
Okay. So.
On my computer, Alvaro was on my left, so I got confused. So that was Vladimir. There is Alvaro.
Alvaro here, yeah.
And on my
to somebody's left.
On my screen, right there is. It's you, Marco. It's the only one who hasn't been there.
It's down below where he belongs.
It's the little one.
So this week there was a big viral clip going on the gaming Twitter sphere from the podcast from Joe Rogan. I'm not sure if you guys there at home are familiar or not. Here in the show, at least I think everyone saw the clip. But if you follow gaming, probably you might have seen it as well, where in a conversation he mentioned his concern about video games, how they were very addictive, and he described them as a waste of time.
Sometimes kids have to see that. Right. And if their parents are living a bullshit life and their neighbors are living a bullshit life and most of their family lives a bullshit life, they just fucking lay around, you know, and then they seek refuge in drugs or video games or something that stimulates them. And video games are a real problem. They're a real problem. You know why? Because they're fucking fun.
Addictive.
And you don't, I have a real problem with them. And you do them, and they're real exciting, but you don't get anywhere.
Right.
Same kid just playing video games, waiting for the next whatever the fuck game is, next Xbox game to come out, and you're gonna waste your time.
I posted something about this on my Facebook. There was like a huge discussion there, which gave us ideas to do.
Snowflake.
I wouldn't like to waste a lot of time discussing Joe Rogan's specific intention or what he said or what he wished to say, or because this is not kind of the point of this show for us to talk about other people's opinions or imagine what they were thinking. That's more like a gossip column. I think what's interesting about that is that it opens a cool topic for us to discuss. If what is our opinion about that? Do we think gaming is a waste of time or not? If yes, why yes? If not, why not? What can it bring in terms of maybe career advancements, or is it good for your life in general? And this is more where I would like to focus the discussion instead of the he said, she said, because I think, he said something, that's his opinion. Who cares?
And by she, I'm assuming you're referring to Marco, right?
I wasn't, but now that you mention
just want to make things clear.
We know who he's referring to.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, who has a strong opinion and wants to start?
I have always a strong opinion.
I knew you'd say
I'll
that.
actually leave our as the last one to disagree with everybody.
Yeah. I'm fine. I'm fine with that. I'm fine.
I don't think it would live in him. He can disagree with us before we express our opinions.
That's my superpower.
Yes.
No, I just want to say something before we get into the topic, like real passionate. Yeah, I think that we need to also understand, and without going into he said, she said, we need to understand the context, right? And I'm used to watching Joe Rogan's podcast. I'm a fan. Some would say I'm a fanboy, but I'm fine with that. I'm a fan, and I think he's the smartest meathead I have ever seen. And by that I mean he's like down to earth, no bullshit. And sometimes I don't agree with him in a lot of stuff, and sometimes it happens that he just blurts something out, which I think if you see the clip, you kind of see him a bit backtracking on what he said, or kind of like showing a bit more understanding of the whole point. And also, if you see the whole interview, it's a meathead talking to a meathead. And I'm saying meathead not in a negative way, but it's like men's men, soldiers, and whatever. And you'll always have opinions like gaming is a waste of time from
like
people like
the guy he was interviewing was giving his whole this entire speech about how his kids are spending so much time playing games and not being outside enough, and how he did this like boot camp for them to exercise and whatnot. So it was a bit in this spirit, and I think he wanted to kind of go along with his guest. And I understand that, and maybe he came out a bit stronger in those specific sentences where he said like that it's a waste of time or something. But I think that's not necessarily he's because he himself also uses a lot of time playing games. But more interesting to me than dissecting his intentions would be to share our opinions. And if we do think so, Vlad, Marco, what do you guys think in terms of gaming being a waste of time? So the four of us here in this call are gamers. When you play video games, do you think you're gaining anything in terms of like benefit, like for your career or money or something, that it can be like tangible, something that you win? I'll start there. And if not, also, I'm of the opinion that even if not, I don't necessarily think that's a waste of time just because of that, but I think that's on the second level. On the first level, I would just like to see each of us if we think if you actually can gain something tangible or measurable from gaming.
So I guess I will start. So for me personally, as I played as a semi-professional player, and I was at my, let's say, peak, I was, I think, one of the best. I mean, not I think, but actually I was. I was one of the best in Slovakia and Czech Republic. So I was playing on stage. I was playing on like bigger online tournaments. I was actually winning like real money. I was like actually literally like receiving money from the tournaments. And I think that the games are not a waste of time. I think it has its positives and negatives in a way. So I think games first and like foremost, I think it helps people to mature. Like also other things, like for example the boot camp that the other guy was talking with Joe. I think that's also something that I experienced in like during my childhood. I also had this kind of boot camp like every summer, 2 months at my grandpa's, exercising, working on the fields and stuff. And it was like the worst time ever. But now that I've matured, I think it was one of the best times actually in my life. As well, I think that looking back at the career of the semi-professional gaming, I think it was a waste of time, but at the same time, it was also like the best time of my life as well. The thing is that games provide you something that you are lacking in life. Okay, so let's say, for example, the person is introvert, for example. It has really problems like socializing with people, which really happens also, and mainly, I think, in puberty, and when kids are like growing up, like let's say, not like the 10, 11, but let's go to more like 13, 14, 15. And people, and some people like me, for example, I was actually in that time an emo kid and listening to metal and, and this kind of music.
Can imagine you with the dark bangs and the highliner.
No. Well, I think that's a little bit extreme, but I had, those like.
I can definitely imagine him crying.
I had Vlad style, but not so cool as he is now. But less cool Vlad. Let's leave it at that.
I was an emo. I had Vlad style.
Yeah, I had not so cool Vlad style.
Wow, just wow, man.
Thank you for the example.
Instead of leaving us all imagining, what we'll do is you'll send us a couple pictures, and then when we're sending the show, I'll edit those too.
Oh, hello.
Yes, please. Please.
I think it's the only way now.
I've been through a lot. But actually, most of the things I actually think to gaming. And what I wanted to say is that many people have problems. Like for me, I had problems socializing with people like really a lot. I had like 1-2 friends. I was not in the middle of the the circles that you have in the classroom. You had those groups. I was like not part either of the group. So what happened is that when I started playing and meeting people online, then I started connecting with people, and in that way, for example, it really helped me to open, as a person, and to stop being, such a introvert. I'm still am. I still have those, moments when I really want to be, not many people around, but I also started, to be more, in front, and to not be afraid of, going out of my comfort zone. So I think in a way it helps the kid to mature in a way, but also, as I mentioned, I think it's a waste of time that it really eats a lot of time that you can use for something different. It gives you joy, it gives you happiness, it gives you, again, friends, new people, whatever, but you still cannot deny the fact that it takes a lot of time. And no, I'm not talking about people who are, like playing an hour or two a day like you, Hugo. Like you have, your priorities, you have, the things you do. And then, okay, so this small window of time is my, happiness.
No. That was how
okay.
much time per day I spend Ghost of Tsushima. I don't spend 1 or 2 hours per day gaming. I spend like 6-7 hours per day gaming.
Okay.
And on the weekends, like the whole, yeah.
Okay, then I take it back, because I thought like this kind of, like really constructed gamer.
I wish I was that contained and that disciplined. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm the same. But I mean, we must all agree that if you really like are passionate about games, you can even stay there like 6-7 hours. What you could do in 7 hours, you could go, I don't know, outside for a walk, to work out, to meet your family, to meet with some friends, to socialize. I don't know, study. I don't know, go to dancing classes, whatever. You can do like a lot of things.
You can. My question here is, are those necessarily better? Like, for example, you just said you could instead go to dancing classes.
Yes. And
is me going to a dancing class better than me spending that time playing? Because I feel like for some people, yes, for some people, no. And I'm saying that it's right or wrong. I'm just asking for your personal opinion. If you think that the time that you spend gaming, it's somehow like inferior or...
Yeah, but I think we are talking so broadly, and I think Marco, you're a bit contradicting yourself, right? So I think to see this question, we need to be a bit more specific in saying like, okay, gaming makes us mature. How? Right? What is it that gaming gives you that you think matures you? And how did it mature you? And why doesn't it mature other people that waste their lives? And then it's all about priorities and benefits, and how you have your own life defined, right? So you can be a highly functional professional and spend 12 hours on a weekend or 20 hours on a weekend gaming, but if you don't have your life balance, you spend 20 hours on a weekend gaming and you don't think about anything else, and then you don't do anything else, you don't produce anything else, you don't contribute anything else.
Yeah.
Right? So on one hand, I see you saying like gaming mature and helps people that are introvert and whatever. And then on the other hand, you're saying like, if you spend 6 hours gaming, maybe there are other things that you could be doing that are better. So I think, what are the benefits that we see in gaming, and what is the proper balance, and how does it help us mature or not? I think that's the point that we need to stress.
Sorry, Hugo. The last thing I want to touch here is to be like specific in which way you mature. So when I started playing League of Legends, for example, I went from the bottom bucket of the players, like the worst, let's call it like the worst players, because
the Vlad tier, for example.
Kind of, yeah, but I think it was worse. And from there, I went to the highest ranks of the players, like not like in Europe, in the world.
Started from the bottom, now we're here.
Yes, and going this way and started like really like from the bottom and going up the way. If you want to really improve in a game, like whatever game, it needs to be, of course, competitive. Okay, so it's not something, like a logical game you play like, at home on your PS4. But if it's a game that is competitive, you need to learn from your mistakes. And that's I think the most important thing you learn along the way.
But now you're going into your specific experience, which is valid, but it's like a tiny percentage of gamers. So
in his defense, my question was like, what do you think specifically, and was gaming a waste of time to you? So I'm trying to gather like 4 different examples, and if we each give our maybe a bit, even if a bit personal experience, I think it can paint a bit of a picture how it can and it cannot be. Because I think you actually nailed the nail on the head.
Hit the nail on the head.
Hit the nail.
Hit the nail on the head. Hit the head on the nail. When you said
the nail in the head.
When you
nailed it. That's it.
When you said that it depends, and it depends how you have your like structure and whatnot, which I think it's true, and that's the problem that I had with Rogan's statement, was that it was like a generalization, like gaming is a waste of time. And that's the thing. To me, I think saying gaming is a waste of time is wrong, but I also think that saying gaming is awesome and it's the best use of your time is also wrong. So it depends on you, on your objectives, on your life, and everything can be good or bad depending on how much you do it, what other priorities you have. Like if you have, 3 kids to feed and you're not going to work and not making any money, and instead you're playing the whole day and your kids are starving, well, probably that's not the best thing you should be doing if you're not making any money of it. If you are depressed or having anxiety or needing an escape and you're playing and it's giving you those things, that's a great use of your time. Or maybe it's a way how you make a career and you're winning money. And I think you could say the same thing about any activity. Like reading is bad if you just read and do nothing else and don't eat. Or sport can be bad, playing sport. So I don't think we can generalize, and I think everyone understands that it's a more complex issue than saying gaming is good or gaming is bad. Like it depends.
Yeah, but we
of course Alvaro disagrees.
We cannot compare gaming to everything, and we especially not to books, right? We can
Why not?
compare. I'm going to explain.
Okay, sorry.
We can compare it to other forms of entertainment, but books are not specifically targeted and marketed to hook you, right? They don't have elaborate strategies to keep.
I would argue against that, actually.
Me too. Books depends what books. Of course, there is like teaching books to learn, but if it's like fiction, it is entertainment. They are written to be as addictive as possible. There's pieces on the plot specifically called hooks to hook the read. Like, so it's totally.
Exactly, but you're missing one very important thing that is the thing that hooks you the most in majority of activities, which is interactivity. So if it's not interactive, it doesn't hook you so much.
How interactive is watching TV? Isn't it one of the activities mostly done in the world, one of the forms entertained, most consumed in the world?
Yeah, but with TV, you have another problem, which is the focus, right? You have another area that is TV doesn't require focus.
Yeah, but some forms of entertainment are more interactive than others, and some forms of entertainment ask more from you, more attention than others, but they're all still forms of entertainment, right?
There's no reward system, right? There's no reward system in books, in reading. There's no reward system developed, and there's no progression. There's nothing like that specifically designed. There is such a thing called gamification, which is built on the structure of gaming and the rewards that it brings, so that it hooks you. Even it's so good that companies use it to hook their customers. But I would like to hear from Vlad. He's making he's making a lot of faces, and he's ugly enough with his normal face.
Let's unleash
so that's fair. No, because I would argue that even heroin, for example, isn't very interactive, and it's still pretty addictive.
Heroin is physically addictive, by the way.
That's fair, but you have other drugs that are only psychologically addictive, and they're still not very interactive. So I don't think, like, you're making a fair point, but only to a certain degree, because one very good point against this that I've heard was from Upper Echelon Gaming. It's a YouTube channel. And he said he was specifically targeting a point that Joe made regarding jiu-jitsu, because he was comparing like games to jiu-jitsu. Like, for example, if you play games all day for 3 years, you won't get anywhere, and compared it to jiu-jitsu, where you would, if you would train jiu-jitsu for 3 years every day, you would basically become a blue belt or a purple belt. You would open up your own gym and start making money and stuff like that. But that is an extreme example. Like, there are thousands and tens of thousands of people training jiu-jitsu each and every day, and they will never open up a gym. They will never make money off of jiu-jitsu. And yeah, you could argue against that in a lot of ways. So I don't think that is an extremely valid point. And yeah, basically the hook that Hugo mentioned is just one part of it. Like, if you have spoken to a bookworm, to someone who really loves books, like, they would tell you about the thrill they get when they open up a new book, the smell of paper, all these things. So I don't think it's
we are being a bit disingenuous here, right? Because if it would be so much at the same level, there would be most of the people. The numbers would be more or less balanced.
I think
of people addicted to reading and people
I think
addicted to games.
The difference is in the entry cost, in my opinion. Really, like, the main difference. There might be other differences, of course, but I think
what entry cost are you talking about?
And just
reading.
Yeah, but elaborate. What is the difference on the entry cost?
If you want to get the same amount of thrills out of a book, you need a lot of time to digest the book, to digest the story. You have to dedicate yourself to that book for at least several days. Whereas in a game, you can just pop a game like Candy Crush and have that rush of dopamine like right away, or maybe in a few minutes.
Yeah, and I just want to take a step back when you said
pretty much to my point, but
when you were saying that if it was the same, it would have the same numbers. I never argued that they were the same. Mm-hmm. Books are not the same as gaming. I don't think they're at the same level of entertainment. I don't think they're at the same level of interactivity. I 100% agree with you that they are completely different medium. My point was that both of them are entertainment, that some people can benefit from reading, and some people can read too much and neglect other activities, and that can be detrimental for them, the same way that playing too much and not doing other things can be detrimental. That was my only argument, that you could say that something is bad about any activity, about the books, about sports, about reading, about watching TV. That was my only comparison, that both of them are activities, not that they are the same. Obviously.
But I think then we need to ask a question to make us all on a similar base, right? Which is, what is it that is so different about gaming that makes it a problem, or makes some people look at it as such a problem that it deserves entry on psychology manuals, that psychologists associations call it a threat, that parents are worried, that meatheads like Joe Rogan say that it's a waste of time? What is it then?
In my opinion, it's newness. It's a new medium that older generations don't understand. And if you look at history, this repeats over and over again. When radio was introduced and new people were listening to the radio, the old generations were like, what is this? And our kids
what magic is this?
Yes, what magic is this? Our youth is addicted to the radio. They're not going out so much, and or when even different music styles were introduced, this is the music of the devil, and people are hooked on this, and is it beneficial or not? And then when TV was introduced, it was like, no, this is the work of the devil, and people now are hooked on TV and they don't want to listen anymore. Even when books were introduced, people were like, now people are reading instead of working the fields and socializing, and everyone is in the train just looking at their books, and that's horrible. Every time something new comes up, the people who don't know it feel uncomfortable, feel left out, and they feel afraid because they don't understand it. So of course, it can be a threat. And for the older generation, they see how interesting and how big and how addictive gaming can be. And of course, maybe, when we're old, something new will come along and we'll also be afraid of it because we don't understand it. But I think that is the main reason. With that being said, I'm not saying that gaming cannot be addictive. Anything can be addictive. And of course, games, any form of products or services, people build those to keep their audiences engaged, right? That's why Netflix plays an episode after the first one ends to keep you watching. That's why Facebook wants to keep you giving like the likes and the drops of dopamine so that you keep going and checking. Everyone who's selling something wants to keep you engaged. 100% I agree that gamers are trying to keep their audiences engaged. That's how they make their money, and that's how they sell their product. I won't argue that. With that being said, if done in moderation, I don't think it's better or worse than any other occupying people's time. I actually think it can be much more productive, for example, for someone to spend 8 hours playing video games and 8 hours watching TV. Of course, this is a generalization. Depends on what you're watching, depends on what you're playing. But in average, since gaming is an interactive medium, I think it will be a better exercise for your brain, and it can give you more of a learning curve, and more, you can get more personal games from that time spent playing games than something like just listening to music or just watching TV, which is completely passive, like you were describing before. With that being said, of course, there's great TV, and you could watch something that teach you morals, or that a documentary that teaches you about history. I'm not criticizing TV. I'm just saying gaming can be just as much, if not even more, rewarding.
I would even argue that novelty, as you mentioned, is a twofold problem, because well, in one way, it's just like the feeling of novelty that the older generations maybe have, that it's something to be afraid of because we don't know how it works. And obviously, and a good example of this would be my parents constantly calling me to turn off the computer and come watch TV, like as if it's any better. Like, it's a bit more socializing, but I was socializing with my friends instead of them. I would be socializing with my parents, but it's the whole difference, in my opinion, in that case. But the other side of the coin that I see here, that is even worse, I'd say, is the novelty in terms of the medium not being regulated enough at the moment, in my opinion. And what comes to mind are loot boxes, but that's just the tip of the iceberg, in my opinion. Because as with anything that was novel at any one point in time, like cigarettes or Coca-Cola is a good example, in my opinion, you wouldn't have regulation when it's too new, and like the authorities wouldn't know how it works. No one would know how it works, and there would be people trying to basically make money off the ignorance of others. And there is a whole part of psychology, it's called agnotology, that delves into this. It's like the tobacco, it's basically the research that the tobacco companies used to try to elicit ignorance in people, in the public, so that they would continue buying their products, although we already knew that they were harmful. And I think it's the same with video games to a degree, because there are certain aspects of video games that I really think are malign, and they are not being controlled yet. And I think this contributes to the overall visual of video games being harmful.
Yeah, 100%. I have to agree on that, because if taking Joe Rogan's example of the jiu-jitsu, I don't think anyone here thinks practicing sport or doing jiu-jitsu on itself is bad. But if I told you that you can go there as a kid and just be beaten up by grown-ups, jiu-jitsu black belts, that would be bad. But that doesn't happen because there are regulations, right? You fight against people your own weight category, with your own experience. Yes, I don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, but regulations is what makes it not horrible, right? It helps it keep a good rep.
It makes it a net positive activity, you would say.
And with gaming, this is exactly what is lacking now. And when you hit there with the loot boxes, and I think you hit it on the head, because there are companies that what they're doing pretty much is going around gambling laws that prohibit, for example, minors to go and gamble in casinos. Yep. So what they're doing is introducing gambling and introducing casinos into games. And I'm talking, for example, imagine a game like CSGO or something like that you can go and open a loot box, get an item, and then if it was a rare, you can go and sell it to other Steam users. And you can sell it for more money than the money that you spent buying that loot box. So basically that's like a roulette, right? You buy the box and then you can either make a profit or make a loss. And when you have like 9-10-year-olds investing hundreds, sometimes thousands stolen from their parents' wallets to try to make a quick profit, that's just kids gambling. That has nothing to do with gaming, right? They're not gaming. They're not using any skill. They're just like clicking and see, did I make money or did I lose money? So that's people just infiltrating gambling into games because they're not regulated enough. And that is horrible. I have no defense and no sympathy for those companies. My only, let's say, defense here would be, I don't really think that's gaming. I think that's gambling hidden in video games. But to me, it has nothing to do with gaming.
But I think that issue in terms of the loot box is an issue that only gamers are very aware of, or mostly gamers are very aware of, and mostly gamers think it's a problem. I think the bad rep of gaming and the bias that exists towards gaming doesn't even get to that. Doesn't even get to the gambling, doesn't even get to the loot boxes. I think it happens way before that. It happens when kids skip school to stay gaming. It happens when kids take the cell phones with the games to the classroom and they're not paying attention. It happens when they stay up late without parents' permission just to game. It happens when those kind of exaggerated behaviors go into adolescence and early adulthood and kind of impair people to be able to fend for themselves and to actually contribute something to society. I think those are the main biases that the community in general and society in general has towards gaming and gamers.
I wanted to mention what Vlad said because not because I think it's the thing that gets the most attention, like you said, but because I think it's the one that actually has merit, has a criticism, and that we as gamers should pay attention to, because that is actually a bad thing, and that we should try to solve so that the gaming doesn't get a bad name. But
I think you have to solve the other stuff also first.
Well, if the other stuff, it's not, to me, it's not merited criticism. If the criticism is that sometimes people are gaming instead of doing other things that they should be doing, then the problem is not gaming. The problem is that person's self-control and that person's use of their time. They could be just eating more than they should, or they could be watching TV instead of going to class, or they could be just going to play soccer instead of doing their homework. You wouldn't say that playing soccer is bad or that eating is bad or that, it's just they're not disciplined, they're not using their time well, they're not doing what they should be doing. You wouldn't fault it on the activity. So to me, that is not merited criticism. So I don't think we need to solve it. We might need to solve the perception, but there's not an actual problem there with gaming to solve, right? But when it comes to people infiltrating gambling mechanics and selling gambling to kids, then there's actually a problem that we can sell.
You want to sell a problem?
Or sell.
Don't sell problems, man. Sell solutions. But let me ask you a question. Then, you think it's ethical for, or do you think, and taking Vlad's words about regulation, do you think game time should be regulated? Do you think companies should impose like mechanisms that say you've been on this game for 3 hours?
They actually
shut down and go have a rest, go whatever for X amount of time, and then come back.
Well, some have parent controls, and some have like recommendations, like, oh, we notice you have been playing for 18 hours straight. Don't you want to go take a nap? But I don't think I haven't heard of regulation.
Yeah, when I was doing bad faces because I heard you say, should companies, and I was like, what? Like dictatorship, no, you can only play. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if parents want to control their kids' time, or if companies want to help them control that, put some parental control features, awesome. When it comes to companies actually saying, no, you're prohibited to play more than 3 hours, then obviously, no, I wouldn't agree with that.
No, I wouldn't say prohibit, but like have a rest. like force you to log off for 15 minutes and then come back. Like an amount of time that would be that would cut that flow of that hooks you for a long time.
No, I'd say that's the same thing then, asking if TVs should start, if you've been watching TV for 4 hours, the TV should shut itself off. If you're on the computer for 3 hours, your computer would shut off, or your chair would eject you. We're adults. We're responsible for what we do with our time. If you're talking about kids, obviously they might need some supervision. That's up to the parents to educate their kids, not up to the companies, not up to game producers. If you have children, obviously, make sure they eat, make sure they don't die, make sure they don't just play the whole day and the whole night and starve to death. That's kind of your job, not the game publisher's job. If you're a parent, that's your job.
It was kind of a poison question because Vlad was mentioning regulations, and I think we need to also be a bit clear and careful. What are we talking about?
I think, not sure if you guys are familiar with this, but there was a call from a lot of gamers to implement some regulations on this, like loot boxes and skins and this some of these mechanics to stop the gambling. This was brought to, in America, this was brought to the Gaming Commission, Games or Gaming Regulation Commission, something like that. There's a specific department who has power over that. Probably they were just lobbied to let it be. They turned a blind eye and they said, it's fine. What? Selling gambling to children? Nah, we're good. And they never did anything about it until it escalated to the point that then some actual countries had to start making regulations about it. So instead of like this independent commission who could have intervened and who understands gaming, they chose not to. And then we had local governments. Actually, for example, I think in Netherlands, they don't allow, for example, loot boxes if you don't publish what are the probabilities to get each item. I know in China as well, they did something like this. There are some countries, like for example, FIFA had to remove the Ultimate Team thingy because, you're buying the packs and opening and getting the rares. So since the body that understands gaming and could go and chirurgically hit on the actual offenders didn't do anything, then local governments, like country governments, went and hit it like blunt force, and sometimes they just banned entire video games, or they just ban because they don't understand it enough. And that's because we should have regulated ourselves, or in this case, the Gaming Commission should have regulated and intervened, and they didn't. And I think that's why it would be good for us to try to remove this gambling out of games. It would look better for games, and it would prevent some worst measures that then someone can come and say, you know what, gaming can be bad for kids, so now you cannot game under 18, or you cannot play games under 21, like alcohol. And to me, that would be completely ridiculous.
Well, I think we need, circling back to the original question. So what was the big deal about Joe Rogan's statement then? Why? And that's why I wanted to make the little beginning statement, because to put it in context, because you mentioned controversy, and I don't see the controversy. I mean, we've been talking for a while now, and everybody says like, it depends. It's a balance thing. It depends. So
yeah, because we're actually saying that it depends, and we're saying that it's up to people, but that's not what he said. What he said was a generalistic one size fits all. He said it's a huge problem, and he said gaming is a waste of time. And those are very big generalizations that if you take those at face value, those sentences are just wrong. If you say gaming is a waste of time, and you don't say if you don't control your time, or if you say depending, you just say it like that, to me that's a statement that it's wrong, very close-minded, and something that I would expect, from a 70-year-old, from an 80-year-old in the cafe. I wouldn't blink twice. That's what I'm used to hear from a person who sells entertainment. I would expect a little bit more nuance when talking about this type of topics. And also some people got a bit triggered, I think probably because of the irony. If you think about it, here's a dude saying, you shouldn't waste your time playing video games. That's a waste of time. What you should do with your time instead is watch my podcast, which is 3 hours per episode. So how is that not a waste of time? You understand the irony and why people were, with that being said.
I don't actually.
You don't see dual criteria there?
No, I don't. I think he even mentions that he games and he has a problem with gaming. And he goes on even saying that people that want to make career out of gaming and making money out of gaming, they should go for it. And everybody that says that, oh, that's 1 in a million, those are the quote unquote losers. So and he compares it to his past on stand up and everything. So I think putting things in context, considering that it's a very personal opinion and we are all saying that it depends, I don't see the controversy. I don't see the irony. To be honest, no, I don't.
Because not everyone probably saw the whole show. For example, I was actively looking for him to make more context, and I had to see 25 minutes of the show until I got to see him saying that, starting to push back, like you're saying, and say, okay, but you can actually make a career of it. Because at that point in that clip, and not even just, it's not like they extracted just one sentence out of context for those entire like 5-10 minutes, he then didn't defend it. What he said was, it's a huge problem and gaming is a waste of time. And then he stood by that, and then the other guy talked and he stood by that. And then about 10 minutes later, he pedaled back. So when you watch that clip, which majority of people watch just the clip, not the entire episode, it does not look great from a person who expects you to spend 3 hours watching his podcast, but tells you if you're playing games, it's a waste of time. It doesn't sit well.
Yeah, I think that's a current issue. You know, it's this outrage culture, this taking stuff out of context, and I think that's a bigger problem than his statement. To be honest, I don't see the controversy in the statement. Even if we take the immediate clip where he says it's a problem because it's a lot of fun. I have a problem with gaming. I don't want to quote, but I'm almost sure that those were his words.
I think you quoted actually.
Yeah.
I think exactly the same.
Yeah, I think it was. I think those were his words. So it's fairly obvious to me, at least, that in the context of what he's saying, that gaming for him is not a priority, but because it's so much fun, it makes him waste his time. So it is a waste of time for him. And it is a waste of time for a lot of people that do not produce anything else, right? That they cannot be, how can I say this in a politic or a bit politically correct way? They cannot be productive members of the society by gaming, not outside of gaming. So it's just like a full-on sinking time into an activity that it is a lot of fun. I mean, I like gaming.
But I think what was the best part, and nobody mentioned it, which is really sad. I didn't like the statement that it's a waste of time because, again, I think it was just generalized just too much. But what I liked actually was how he finished like the whole kind of this small clip related to gaming. He said that, they were talking about even Alvaro mentioned it, that the kids of the host said that, but they say you can, make millions, blah, blah, blah. And Joe is like, I tried for myself to, being a comedian. And then he mentions that I didn't have parents to watch over me. And so I found it, I realized it by myself that I cannot, make it, or I can make it. Yeah. So let the kids, realize by, themselves that it's a waste of time, or it's not a waste of time, or if, I don't know, it makes them happy. And I think that was I think the best part, because for me personally, it applied as well. I realized at some point that this is enough. From the moment when I invested a lot of time into it, but I wanted to pursue somewhat a longer path regarding to gaming. But in that moment, I realized that I think this is it, and it was really like for me, this is it, and I changed from 12 hours a day to 3 to 4, let's say, or 5. I don't know, sometimes during the weekends even more, but I changed it. And that was the time I realized by myself. It was not by my mom, because my mom was telling me from day one, it is a waste of time. My grandma, my grandpa, everybody. But I realized it myself, and he mentioned it.
Your two friends, because you mentioned you had like 2 friends.
Yeah, I mean, me
which
and
is
my
2 more than you have now.
Yeah, but those are like the other personalities, right? So I think this is, the thing that I liked about the whole thing. Of course, I mean, there are things you like and don't like, but I liked actually this part where he said that, I mean, let them figure out themselves.
Yeah, I think what he said is not like offensive or problematic in any way.
Or controversial even.
Yeah, it was controversial because a lot of people spoke about it and a lot of people started making
because
noise,
some websites wanted some clicks.
Sure, if it made it generated a lot of conversation about it, which is kind of the definition of controversial. I don't think it should have been, because I think it wasn't offensive in any way. I don't think it was. I don't agree with the statement at the face value, but I can also understand that he was talking about him personally. Maybe it's just not explained it in the best way. But if you know him, if you know the podcast, and if you know that that's not exactly what he meant. He didn't mean like for everyone in the world, gaming is a waste of time. But yeah, I think we're going a bit into dissecting what he said and what he was thinking, which is kind of what I wanted to avoid. And I wanted us most to focus then on the question, if it is a waste of time or not. From what Marcus spoke, what I understood is that, obviously, like we all said and agreed, it can be depending on what you do with it. But for him specifically, it helped him mature. It helped him overcome a bit of introversion, overcome a bit of introversion and become more extrovert. So also making more friends. And then even monetary gain as you then started to play professionally. So to you can see obvious multiple benefits. So I think that's already kind of a proof that, at least to you, I'm not saying that every single moment of gaming wasn't wasted, but that at least there were some parts of gaming that to you were not a waste of time, since you gained those things.
And I also find out that apparently the whole internet went into bed with my mom in most of the games. So
okay.
That's something you find out.
If it wasn't for gaming, how else would you?
Also with your sister and with other, family members.
Of course.
All in good banter. All in good.
That's
banter.
a classic. So.
Yeah.
So going around the clock, at least in my screen, Vlad, for you personally, was there something that you think that you gained from gaming?
Quite a few things. I think because my mom was quite overprotective, and we didn't live in a very friendly neighborhood, let's say. Like it has the it had the back at the time it had the like highest criminality rate out of all the districts in the whole of Slovakia. So it wasn't very nice being outside all the time. But like when you're a kid, you don't really perceive it that way. At least I didn't, and my friends didn't. So we would often go outside and play, and we would maybe like find drug injections and stuff like that. But we wouldn't.
Straight out of Compton.
Yeah, but we wouldn't really like perceive it in that way. But my mom, of course, did. So she wouldn't let me stay outside long, and very often she wouldn't even let me outside. So the next day at school, like all my friends would have these awesome stories of insane adventures they went on, and I would be like, I was sitting at home. And at first it would be just like watching TV maybe, and later on it became playing video games. And
so mainly the main gain you had was you managed to conserve your virginity until last year, right?
I would say conserve my sanity. No, because really, I don't know what I would do if I was just to watch TV and like converse with my parents and maybe reading some books or something. Because this would, at first it would allow me to like go on some adventures, at least like Diablo 2 and these RPGs that would really like give you those thrills. And later on, when the internet came, I would be able to socialize, and that was something extremely special for me, because very often I wouldn't be able to see any of my friends, to meet up with them. And I remember there was like a particular birthday which I had when everyone like not really forgot I had birthday, but they like
just didn't care.
Yeah, no, because like a few days before that, everyone agreed that we will celebrate my birthday on, I don't know, the next Sunday. And when my birthday came, everyone was like set on the Sunday, and they like somehow ignored that this was the day. So at least like a handshake and a happy birthday would be in place. Everyone ignored it. Like no one from my close friends, from my family actually congratulated me. And I tried to battle it inside of me, but I still felt kind of down. But I had this one guy I didn't know personally. His nickname was Goo Man. I remember it to this day. And we played like Warcraft 3 Frozen Throne custom maps together, like almost every day.
That's
and this guy remembered my birthday. Like I told him like weeks ago maybe, and he remembered my birthday, and he was the only one that congratulated me on the day. And that was like a hell of a strong like interaction for me, hell of a strong experience. Yeah, and then there was plenty of stuff like speaking about like some, I wouldn't say personal growth, but maybe like developing at least some skills. Because when you sink several thousand games into League of Legends, you start to question yourself, like, what am I doing with my life? and I actually figured that we were like a pre-made team of 5 people, and we would be arguing all the time. Like we would go to sleep pissed at each other. And that's when I realized after some time that this isn't going anywhere nice, and we need to change that. We need to work on that. And that actually made me reflect on my relationship with those guys, and also to reflect on the way we communicate, not only in the game, but in general. Like, this isn't productive. We're not winning more games. Our friendship is hurting, basically. What can we do to make it better? And we found ways how to communicate better, and I think in the end it helped us develop our friendship even more. So, I was also helping a friend of mine, which was also studying psychology, with his diploma thesis, I think it was, and he had like a questionnaire that was collecting answers from lots of people from World of Warcraft. And he was actually physically like getting the feedback with his avatar in the game. He was asking people questions and like noting it down, but he needed to sift through the data. So he sent a part of the data to me, and there were questions like, did World of Warcraft help you develop any personal skills? Like, do you think you're better at communicating with other people and stuff like that? What is your what is your profession in real life and stuff like that? And there was a ton of managers that became managers after becoming guild masters in World of Warcraft, saying like, these skills that I gained in World of Warcraft actually translated directly into my real job, which is something that blew my mind. I couldn't even imagine this would be the case if I wouldn't like personally see the testimonies and wouldn't be sifting through tens of them. So yeah, I think for me the answer is quite clear on this.
Nice. Those are quite some cool examples. And I think it's quite funny that you mentioned that, living in a bad neighborhood and having the gaming as a way to escape, because I actually had very, very similar story. We were living in the project in this like a social, I don't know, like this neighborhood that is like the houses owned kind of by the government. So yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, I think projects, it would be the best translation. Ghetto. Something like that. And yeah, it was not the safest place, let's say. So my parents used gaming as a strategy to keep me and my siblings more time at home, so not spend so much time on the street. So I'm a bit older, so this is not like you like computer and internet. Or no, there was no internet, at least popularized. I'm talking about like the Nintendo, the family before the NES and the Atari and stuff like this. So
Timex.
No, for us personally,
Am
Just
I?
kidding.
I'm the oldest
Just kidding.
here. I know. Timex with the tapes that loaded like for like 10 minutes, and then you would play Streets of Rage and Pac-Man.
No, this is older. The Atari, you could not put any tapes. It would come with some games in the memory, and that was it. You could not.
Dude, I'm talking about tapes. Like
but you're talking
that you
about
put on the Walkman and you would hear music. I'm talking about that time. You would have these old tape recorders that were like rectangular, and the lid would open like this.
Yeah.
And you would put the tape. Like you would have to rewind it sometimes with a pen,
Yes,
remember?
of course.
So you put it, and then you would press play, and it was linked to a keyboard and linked to the TV, and it would make a huge like sound like for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then the game would show. And sometimes you would wait 5-10 minutes, and then it would break, and then you would have to start all over again. And it was these like, okay, I'm too old. I'm going to shut up.
No, because you mentioned cassettes and Street of Rage. So I was imagining, like the 8-bit generation or something like that. Because, what I was mentioning was way before that. I'm mentioning like the first Atari, that didn't have controllers. It was like the big joystick and the square. That's the first one we had. Then I think we had the Nintendo Family Edition or something like that. And those were my siblings' consoles, and I would usually play with those because I had older siblings. But very similar point, that it was kind of a way how to basically make sure that we would survive and not build the streets all the time and be more time at home. I also gained a lot of personal skills, like some of you mentioned, and some of those helped me with my career. Also a little bit of monetary, for example, with Magic the Gathering. So I had some, let's say, monetary and some like personal gains, but instead of giving similar examples to those, I would actually just argue that one of the best things I gained was simply happiness and joy, because I usually am happy when I'm playing video games, and I enjoy doing that. And for me, that it's already a positive. That's something that I'm gaining. There's this little story or anecdote of an old, just a guy sleeping on a hammock. Is that what you call?
Hammock, yeah.
Hammock? Rede.
Yeah.
So he's, in Portuguese, Alvaro knows what I'm saying.
You
so
need to do the face.
Yeah. So exactly. That's how you say it in Portuguese. You need to do the So he's resting on a hammock, and he's a fisherman. And he's usually spends most of the days like resting there, having a good time. And this other fisherman comes to him and is like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, I'm here, I'm resting. He was like, well, why don't you go fish? Oh, I already got a fish for today, so I already have dinner. Yeah, but you only have one fish. Yeah, but I only eat one fish. Yeah, but if you could go fishing, you could have more. And he was like, why? So you could sell it. Why? So you could have money. Why? Well, you could take that money and, for example, invest. Why? Well, you could, for example, get a boat. You could catch more fish. It would be a lot better. Why? Well, it would be more efficient. You can, get a lot of money from that. Why? Well, you can invest. One day you can retire. You can have like a big house. Why? Well, then you can rest. What the fuck do you mean? I'm resting now. And to me, with gaming, sometimes people don't just see the immediate gain, and they're just talking about, you can gain this skill, you can translate it into being a manager, or you can make a career out of it, and you can make money. And all of those things are true, and I agree with all of those. But also, a lot of these things that we're doing, like getting a career so you get money, but all of those things, that's so you get some joy and you get some happiness at the end of the day, right? That's kind of the point. And it gives me that already directly. So I would already argue that if I'm gaming and it's making me happy, I wouldn't say it's a waste of time. Even if I wouldn't make any money out of it, even if I wouldn't get any personal skills out of it, if it's making me happy, to me, that's a positive. That's kind of why I live, at least me personally. My objective of life is not to be like the CEO or to be the richest guy on earth or to be successful. To me, it's kind of to be happy. So it's kind of doing that. works for me.
Yeah, I think that's very valid, but that's not that's not a point related to gaming. I would say. I think that's between that we are going into very philosophical terms here, right? Whether you have a more immediate. I don't think we do career and invest in more money and whatever to have more joy per se. I mean, we are built and programmed to survive better, to have more options to survive better, and to have a better quality of life and all that, right? And it's a valid point if you want to balance that with a more hedonistic kind of view. But what that leads to, and that leads us to the first to the original question, is that it's not about people like you that balance it and have their goals are defined and they achieve and they produce and they pay taxes and they get married and they have their own quality of life and they improve it, maybe not as fast, not as much as if they wouldn't game, but they improve it while being joyful and having a hobby that entertains. The issue here and the perception and the negative bias is more about the people that go so much into this joy mindset that they forget all the rest, and then it ends up being counterproductive, hence a waste of time.
Yeah, I think, and that's the problem kind of that the people had with the statement, that he didn't say gaming can be a waste of time, or gaming in excess can be a problem. He said just gaming is a huge problem and gaming is a waste of time. But if you, of course, obviously, if you put it in context, I think we all agree here, and we're kind of just hitting the same.
Yeah.
What about you, Oliver? Something that you think you gained from gaming?
Well, my approach to gaming was always very balanced. I never thought about making money or be a professional whatever gamer in whatever game. I also come from a poor neighborhood, and I didn't have access to games. As a child, I would go to the streets, although it wasn't so safe, and I got my ass kicked a lot of times. But I would be in the streets instead of gaming. So for me, I found gaming as a pure entertainment kind of activity, and I gamed when I was probably already a teenager, so not before my teen years, if I remember correctly. Funny enough, I would see my parents, like my dad, my mom, and one of my aunt and uncle, they would gather at my place or at my aunt's place. And in those old Timex with audio tapes and whatever, they would stay until like 3 and 4 in the morning playing Pac-Man.
Yeah, my father would not leave, because that's the thing. They bought the things to keep us off the streets. So we would play during the day, but at night we would go to bed, and my father would stay up playing checkers on the Atari thing the whole night, and then, like, someone would come out, oh shit, I'm supposed to go work and I haven't slept the whole night. So
I wasn't even allowed to play that Timex by myself, right? It was their thing. So gaming wasn't something that was foreign to me. It was just something that was not so much accessible. And when I had the consoles, I had those like family game unbranded consoles that had the cartridges that you or that would come with 50 games and whatever.
There's millennials right now and looking like, what's he doing? What
is he doing?
No, I actually remember doing that as well. So
yeah, so it was always like an entertainment activity, and then I mean, I remember, I think the most hooked I was in a game was already with the PlayStation 1, I think, and it was Siphon Filter. And that game, I remember spending like whole afternoons, mornings playing and until I got to the end. But also, I think my personality is not much into. I play one game until the end, and I'm not able to play it again. So it's like it's done. I never see it again. You know, like it was a lot of fun. Siphon Filter, Metal Gear Solid were my things at the time. In terms of what I've gained, so I think I gained entertainment. I think. Then later in my life, I realized that I gained so much more. Like it was an opportunity to test my mental skills. I always liked games that were kind of like had the puzzle side to it, so that were more mentally challenging. So and on my phone, I would like those games that were kind of like brain gyms with the math problems and the language problems and whatever. So I think that helped me a lot in terms of mental dexterity, if we can call it that.
Yeah.
And very, very recently, I think just very recently, it gave me the best benefit of all. So it gave me a community. It gave me a chance to have a voice and to put ideas into practice and to kind of advocate for a cause, which was part of what we are talking about now, which is the bias and the fight against that bias to kind of say, it's not really like you guys think. So to me, and going into a bit of the soppy side, the best benefit that gaming gave to me was like you guys and the community that we created. I before that, I never thought about gaming as you guys mentioned, like the community, like the socializing, like all of that. For me, I would place the story games, single player games, and that would be it. So,
yeah, but I think that's actually also a good argument for it, that you were getting some benefits that you don't necessarily even notice.
Yeah.
I think also a lot of people don't give gaming and activities that they like in general enough credit. So when you're playing games, and even if it's not just those specific like puzzle games that there's math or there's problems, any game, like if there's a platformer, there's a problem in front of you and you need to figure out, I jump there and then, or if it's a shooter, I should shoot that guy first, or I should shoot the medic so he doesn't heal the other guys. Anyway, game, whatever genre it is, there's always some problem that you're faced with and you need to solve it, and you get better at solving those specific problems. And then you can apply those skills from solving those problems, and you can solve similar ones or use similar methods, but basically you're getting better at solving problems, which is the definition of intelligence. Like the human capacity, or anyone's, or it can be also animals, capacity to solve problems.
Like your day-to-day problems where you go to the street and they're like, I have to shoot the medic so that he doesn't.
Exactly, that's what.
Violating the Geneva Convention right off the bat.
No, yeah, I get it. Problem solving, I think, is one of the and the ability to problem solve and to see things that are not clear immediately. I think that's a very big benefit of gaming that is not really immediately understood by all, including the parents that are just seeing the kids like, he's just gaming.
Yeah, and another thing is not even then just the problem solving. And even if it's not a direct skill, but I think it can also teach you morals sometimes because of the stories that you're watching or interacting with. Of course, it can also teach you bad morals, but
that's a minefield,
Example behind me there, Joe and Ellie from Last of Us, my favorite game. I question a lot of things about morality and started understanding a lot about people's motivations and how people are not necessarily good and evil, are not black or white. When the first game
Yeah,
came
but you
on, I
have
was
the
a bit,
ability to process that, right? I'm not
course, it can be a
sure
tool.
if a 12-year-old playing The Last of Us has the ability to.
Of course,
So
but you could
that's
say,
why I'm saying that morality is a bit of a minefield from
of
the
course, but you
point
could
that you
say,
start shooting other people and stabbing them and slitting them their throats.
but if you could say the same thing then about books, I could say books could be good to teach you, and you could say no because a 1-year-old doesn't know how to read. Or I could say, well, books can be, teach good stories and good morality. Or like you can study geography in a book and it can teach you geography. And it's like, no, because a 5-year-old won't understand a geography book. Of course, it's just a tool. It doesn't open your head and put the morality in it. I'm just saying it can help you if you have a good story that makes you question things or makes you think. It can help you think about things you haven't before. Can help you question your morality and learn some things there. But it's not exclusive to gaming. Also, I think some great movies can do the same thing. Some great books that you can read the story and say, hey, I never thought about it that way. Now I have more sympathy for this type of person, or I have more sympathy for this situation, and it helps put yourself in someone else's shoes. And I think that can be an ability in empathy, which can teach basically can teach empathy to anyone, which is not something exclusive to games, and I'll concede that. But because games are more interactive, you are not seeing the protagonist. A lot of times you are the protagonist. I think it can be even more impactful when it comes to this empathy, of this exercise of empathy, because a lot of times it literally puts you in someone else's shoes, right? And you're seeing it like first person view. And I think that can be a huge exercise in morality that as a kid or someone growing up can, depending on the game, and of course there's games also that can teach horrible morals, but can be, if correctly utilized, can be a tool that can also teach morality.
What was that game that you gained bonus points for running over pregnant ladies?
Carmageddon.
Carmageddon, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good teaching one.
But a real life example of what Hugo said would be actually the Polish government issued a video game into the curriculum, like the what you call it? Well, in Slovak, it's like
the school program, like the curriculum.
No, the little literature that you have to read, basically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mandatory
literature. So there's a video game that you have to play in the Polish educational system.
Okay.
And it's This War of Mine. I don't know if you're familiar with the game.
One of my favorite games.
So boring.
Yeah. So it basically puts you in the shoes of a civilian in a what was it? A civil war, I think.
Mm-hmm. Some kind of war.
There's a war going on, and you're bunkered at a shelter and trying to survive. And it's really nice to teach people of not always glorifying war and always seeing like the action aspect of it, but seeing like from the side of the victims and having that empathy. One of my
if you're able to stay awake,
Oh, come on. Like I had a great time with the game.
Me too.
Boring.
Come on.
It's one of my favorite games of all time. Yeah, but of course it's a specific genre. If you don't like survival-based building,
and because it made me really like it gave me one of those aha moments when I was like, when you slowly start to spiral away from what you would like to do. Like, because there are these parts where you're, as you said, building a base, then like scavenging the surroundings, and you need to balance it all out because your hideout can be raided. So someone needs to stay awake, someone needs to have a nap during the night, and someone needs to scavenge. So you have 3 people at the beginning, but then one of mine got shot, and I needed to care for him. And then this cycle was actually broken, so we couldn't get enough food by scavenging. Because someone had to care for him and someone had to stay awake, like not enough sleep was like gotten by all of them. And then it started to spiral away, and then I started considering maybe it would be more effective to not go scavenging in that like abandoned supermarket, but to go raid the neighborhood's elderly couple, because they still have a lot of supplies. And it only in these extreme situations, when you start to consider things like these, you stop and say like, aha, that's why those people in those areas struck by war actually like seem to be, well, not exactly straight with their moral compass, because it messes up your moral compass. If you're fighting for survival, this is what happens to you, and experiencing it firsthand, like on yourself, without even noticing it for a while, I think that does a lot more to you than just like reading about it or seeing it in TV or something like that. So I think this was a really good move from the Polish government.
And this company, usually they make this, it's a Polish company, they usually try to make these games that question morality. They're also the same guys who make Frostpunk. You're like this community surviving in this like post-apocalyptic Frozen. And there's also some really cool moral questions coming from there. And like even when you said the guy was wounded and you needed to care for him, so therefore you couldn't scavenge. I had the same situation. You considered go robbing the elder couple next door. I considered the morality of what if I simply let him die, and what if I simply kill him? Because what is morally more acceptable, the whole community and the 3 people dying because we don't have enough resources, or he dies but at least then these 2 survive? Because so it makes you question.
So basically you all became monsters.
Well,
one wanted to kill old people, the other wanted to kill the injured one.
Not kill, just
monsters.
But it makes you at least question these things, when it's right to do something wrong, if it can bring more benefits, or is it right to do the ends justify the means? Until when are you willing to go to survive? And it's nice to see that morals are not a question of black and white, and that there's a gray zone, and that it can move depending on the situation, and especially for children. And that's why I think they added it as a curriculum, mandatory curriculum for school. At least me as a kid, I used to see the world a lot as black and white, and people are wrong or people are right. And I had this very robotic view of the world, a very like judgmental. And video games were a huge part of what made me grow in that aspect, and that realized that people are not inherently good or inherently evil, and that they have to deal with the hand that they were dealt, and maybe they do some things that I wouldn't do because they are in situations that I am not, and it helped me become a lot more understanding and mature in that aspect. With that being said, as you can see, there can be some positives, there can be some gains. So I hope you get some of those. If not, I hope you have a good time and enjoy your games. Maybe let us know on the comments below what games you would suggest, or what games taught you, or what games gained something for you that you want us to have as well. And you can suggest those in the comment section down below. All right, everyone. See you next time.
Yeah.
See you guys.